Hello again, folks. Welcome. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I hope this finds you in good health and in good spirits. If not, hang around. We'll improve those spirits and that health. This go show, after the last one, which was kind of iffy, certainly with a good message in it, though. This one seems to be, first of all, much more of Nichiren's voice. We certainly hear Nichiren in this one. But again, starts a little oddly. We know that Toki Jonin was a very dedicated lay supporter, a lay monk of Nichiren. And you can tell by some of these, if Nichiren is having a dialogue with one of his 6 senior disciples or other lay monks, I would say, lay teachers, he's very scholarly in his discussions. Nowhere more so than with his actual ordained disciples, though. And as he goes further out into those who follow his scholarship to just lay believers, lay practitioners who are learning the Bodhisattva way, he's much more conversational, I would say. And in this one with Toki Jonin, as he has in the past, we see a very doctrinal, scholarly Nichiren, explaining concepts straight out of the sutras, connecting the dots, as it were. And as this letter starts right off the bat with a question, no preamble, no thanks for being here, no I appreciate your question, your seeking spirit. It's almost kind of informal. It's a letter, so it's not like he's documenting a conversation. But we'll just take it as read. This may just be that this is the only part of that letter that is perhaps readable. It's entirely possible that some of these documents, some of them suffered, hundreds of years of maybe not very well taken care of, or even in the original documents, the first page may have been destroyed, so they take it up from where it is. So we won't let that deter us. Unlike the last brief go-show that we read, the meaning of resolve, which was, I thought, not really believable as the voice of Nichiren, although it is indeed an important concept. This one definitely does sound like our teacher, Nichiren. So let's just get into it. It's a comparison of the Lotus and other sutras. So even the title isn't that formal. It sounds like there was a lot of back and forth between Nichiren and Toki Jonin, and maybe some others. Maybe Toki had been talking to Nichiren about, or sent him a letter and said, look, I'm getting these kinds of questions. Could you clarify these points? It's that kind of a response, and you'll see what I mean in a moment as I finally get to it. So it starts with question. Now, normally Nichiren falls into his question and answer type of teaching once he's had a bit of a formal letter in front of it, but this one, boom, starts on a question. The, quote, Teacher of the Law chapter in the 4th volume of the Lotus Sutra reads, quote, this Lotus Sutra is the most difficult to have confidence in and the most difficult to understand. Or you might be accustomed to hearing that, the most difficult to believe and the most difficult to understand. What is the meaning of this passage? Answer. More than 2,000 years have passed since the Buddha expounded the Lotus Sutra in India. It took a little more than 1,200 years before this sutra was introduced to China, and 200 more years before it was brought from China to Japan. Since then, more than 700 years have already passed. After the demise of the Buddha, there were only 3 persons who realized the true meaning of this passage of the Lotus Sutra. In India, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna said in his treatise on the great perfection of wisdom, quote, "The Lotus Sutra is like a great physician who can change poison into medicine." End quote. This is the way he explained the meaning of the passage, quote, "the most difficult to believe or take confidence in, and the most difficult to understand," end quote. In China, the great teacher Tendai Chi interpreted it in the light of its context. Quote, "Among all those I, Shakyamuni Buddha, have preached, now preached, and will preach, this Lotus Sutra is the most difficult to believe, have confidence in, and the most difficult to understand," end quote. And in Japan, the great teacher Dengyo elaborated on it as follows, quote, "All the sutras of the first 4 periods preached in the past, the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra now being preached, and the Nirvana Sutra to be preached in the future, are easy to have confidence in and easy to understand. This is because the Buddha taught these sutras in accordance with the capacity of his listeners. The Lotus Sutra is the most difficult to take confidence in and to understand because in it the Buddha directly revealed what he had attained." Question: can you explain what he meant by that? I thought it was clear, but... Answer: the ease of believing and understanding in the one case is due to the fact that the Buddha taught in accordance with the capacity of the people. So he taught the people in the way that they're accustomed to understanding things and accustomed to taking confidence in. And so he was speaking in their experience. And the difficulty of believing and understanding in the other case is due to the fact that he taught in accordance with his own enlightenment. In the Lotus Sutra, he finally feels everyone is prepared now to understand how this enlightening thing works, how I awakened my Buddha, inviting all to listen so that they in turn could do the same thing. So rather than couching all of these concepts in terms that they were accustomed to, he now said, now you should be able to understand and personalize this for yourself. And let me tell you how this is something I accomplished, how I enlightened myself. Here it is. Obviously still teaching, but not catering to the abilities of those in his audience, because he knew this teaching wouldn't really take a foothold until our day, thousands of years after he's gone. But nonetheless, here it is. Here's the teaching for anyone to realize their own Buddhahood right now in this life. The great teacher Kobo and his successors at Toji Temple in Japan hold that of all the exoteric teachings, the Lotus Sutra is the most difficult to believe and the most difficult to understand, but that, in comparison to the esoteric teachings, it is easy to believe and easy to understand. So it's some lofty thing. You can just understand it as magic and mystical, and you don't need it. It doesn't apply to you. They just discount it altogether. Chikaku, Chisho, and their followers contend that both the Lotus Sutra and the Mahavajrayana Sutra are among the most difficult to take confidence in and most difficult to understand, but that of these two, the Mahavajrayana Sutra is by far more difficult to believe and to understand. Well, maybe that's because the Mahavajrayana has sorts of mudras and madras, and they added all these other things into it and mysticized it. All the people in Japan agree with both of these contentions. They just do what they're told, right? So they believe, which is why I don't like that word. However, in interpreting this passage, I say that the non-Buddhist scriptures are easier to believe and understand than the Hinayana Sutras. The Hinayana Sutras are easier than the Mahavajrayana and the other correct and equal sutras. The Mahavajrayana and other sutras are easier than the Wisdom Sutras. The Wisdom Sutras are easier than the Flower Garland Sutra, and the Flower Garland is easier than the Nirvana Sutra. The Nirvana is easier than the Lotus Sutra. And the theoretical teaching of the Lotus is easier than the essential teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Thus, there are many levels of comparative ease and difficulty. Although he put them in the proper order, right? Question: what is the significance of knowing that there's differences? Knowing them. Kind of a silly question, but obviously Nichiren felt it needed answering. Answer: the great lantern that illuminates the long night of the sufferings of birth and death, the sharp sword that severs the fundamental darkness inherent in life, is none other than the Lotus Sutra. Period. The teachings of the True Word, Flower Garland, and other schools are categorized as those expounded in accordance with the people's capacity. Now understand, when he's labeling True Word, Flower Garland, he's not saying the Avatamsaka Sutra is a lesser, an unimportant teaching. He's talking about the schools that promote those teachings as the end-all, be-all, and he's putting them in their proper place. Follow? They are therefore easy to believe and understand. The teachings expounded in accordance with the people's capacity are the sutras that the Buddha preached in response to the wishes of the people of the 9 worlds, just as the wise father instructs an ignorant son in a way suited to the child's understanding. On the other hand, the teaching expounded in accordance with the Buddha's enlightenment is the sutra that the Buddha preached directly from the world of Buddhahood, just as a sage father guides his ignorant son to his own understanding. Eventually, his son is no longer ignorant, and the father can share his insights with his son so that his son is now capable of understanding that insight for himself. Right? That's what he means. In the light of this principle, I've carefully considered the Mahavajrayana, Flower Garland, Nirvana, and other provisional sutras, only to find that all of them are sutras expounded in accordance with the people's capacity. Question: is there any evidence to support this contention? Okay. Answer: the Srimala Sutra says, quote, the Buddha brings to maturity those who have only practiced non-Buddhist teachings by revealing the practice of good causes for the realms of human and heavenly beings. Right? The 6 lower worlds, basically. To those who seek to become voice hearers, those of learning, the Buddha imparts the vehicle for voice hearers. To those who seek to become cause-awakened ones, right, the world of learning, realization, the Buddha expounds the vehicle for cause-awakened ones. To those who seek the great vehicle, the Buddha reveals the great vehicle for bodhisattvas. This statement refers to those teachings that are easy to believe and easy to understand, such as the Flower Garland, Mahavajrayana, Wisdom, Nirvana, and other sutras. In contrast, the Lotus Sutra says, quote, at that time, the world-honored one addressed bodhisattvas, not everyone, bodhisattvas, medicine king, and through him, the 80,000 great men, saying, quote, medicine king, do you see in this great assembly the immeasurable number of heavenly beings, dragon kings, yakshas, Gandharvas, Gandharvas, Ashuras, Garudas, Kimnaras, Mahoragas, human and non-human beings, as well as monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, those who seek to become voice hearers, who seek to become Pratyeka Buddhas, or who seek to the Buddha way. Upon these various kinds of beings, who in the presence of the Buddha listen to one verse or one phrase of the Lotus Sutra of the wonderful law, and for a moment think of it with joy, I will bestow on all of them a prophecy that will attain supreme, perfect enlightenment. So this is something I should add to my constant repetition of what is resolve. You know, what is it to take confidence and be determined in our action of chanting and invoking and enlightening our Buddha nature, is that it should be done with tremendous joy. Joy at the prospect, like Christmas morning, if you're a Christian, or think of a celebration where your anticipation for something wonderful is already manifest before you even achieve it. With that kind of heart and mind, chant Namo Myo Renge Kyo. In the various other sutras, we find that the 5 precepts were taught for human beings, the 10 good precepts for heavenly beings, the 4 infinite virtues of pity, compassion, joy, and impartiality for the deity Brahma, the practice of almsgiving for the devil king, the 250 precepts for the monks, the 500 precepts for nuns, the 4 noble truths for voice hearers, the 12-linked causal chain for cause-awakened ones, and the 6 paramitas for bodhisattvas. This method of teaching is comparable to water that assumes the round or square shape of its container, or to an elephant that exerts just enough strength to subdue its enemy. The Lotus Sutra is entirely different. It was preached equally for all, including the 8 kinds of non-human beings and the 4 kinds of believers. This method of teaching is comparable to the measuring rod that is used to eliminate uneven places, or to the Lion King that always exerts its full power in attack, regardless of the strength of its opponent. When one examines all the various sutras in the clear mirror of the Lotus, it is evident that the 3 True Word Sutras, including the Mahavajrayana, and the 3 Pure Land Sutras are teachings expounded in accordance with the people's capacity. And yet, because people have made the teaching of Kobo, Jikaku, and Chisho their basis, this truth has been obscured in Japan now for more than 400 years. It is like exchanging a gem for a pebble or trading sandalwood for ordinary lumber. Because Buddhism has gradually been turned upside down, the secular world also has been plunged into corruption and chaos. The similes and the similarities to today's world are unmistakable. Of course, we live in the same latter day of the law. Buddhism is like the body, and society is like the shadow. When the body bends, so does the shadow. How fortunate that all of my disciples who follow the Buddha's true intention will naturally flow into the ocean of comprehensive wisdom. Again, intent. But the Buddhist scholars of our time put their resolute mind, or their resolve, in teachings expounded according to the people's capacity. And they don't challenge people to expand, to move beyond. They just keep them in the doldrums, right? Whatever's easy. And therefore doomed to sink into the sea of suffering. They'll never escape. They'll never reach Buddha. They'll always be repeating the same thing. I will explain in more detail on another occasion with my deep respect, Nichiren. Well, that was definitely Nichiren talking, don't you think? Don't you agree? Very important to understand the significance of the Lotus Sutra amongst all of the Buddha's teachings. All of them are valid to awaken certain insights, certain levels. We are now, though, in this modern day, well beyond learning and training ourselves into these lower worlds. It doesn't do any harm to go back and reference them. Sometimes we need to reawaken something that's gone dormant. But all of it is in service to the Lotus Sutra. Read the Lotus Sutra, then go stab around these other sutras, and you will see, oh, no, that takes me back to that. What chapter was that in the Lotus? Yeah, there it is. Oh, my goodness. That means so much more to me now, because I'm stubborn. I needed that karmic impediment. I needed to rip that open and go, oh, now I know what that is, right? That's the way samsara is. Sometimes we fight ourselves, but we have to know with absolute confidence that Myoho Renge Kyo, that is the ultimate, the pinnacle of our practice of Buddhism. Because it is the awakening of Buddha. But if our samsaric mind needs a little bit more conviction, a little bit more stuff cleared out of the way for us to fully experience our Buddhahood, who's to say that that's a bad thing? But don't get romanced by some old story or fable and think that's all I have to do. You'll never get there. You'll never get to your Buddha. That becomes then a distraction. And this is why Nichiren is so strongly worded about these other things. Because, for example, in Japan, the entire population has been slowly lulled into this easy, lazy practice. Doesn't amount to anything. In fact, it does. I should correct it. It does amount to something. It amounts to a life of sloth, misery, suffering. Nobody should want that. Raise yourself above that. Require more of your life. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much for listening, for your support. Share this with friends, with new people. Strengthen your own practice and keep your health. That's most important. Without your health, no one else can benefit. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye. Hey, thank you for being here. Did you know there's a third way you can help support this channel? And it won't cost you a cent. Yep. If you are not able to be a patron on Patreon or use the PayPal me at .com at Sifu Sylvain because you don't have the financial fortune to help support this channel right now, you, as I say, always support this channel by watching, but you can also help us grow so that maybe one day we can get over 10,000 subscribers and YouTube will grace us with monetization. It's not a lot, but if you can make sure you're subscribed and share a video like a simple one, just go into the search criteria and type monk and you'll have a video that'll come up that's been up for years about what is a monk. You know, it's called monk, who, how, where, something like that. That might be a great introduction to somebody who doesn't understand what a monk is to begin with. It's a tool. Use this channel as a tool to help you with your bodhisattva practice, and share a video to somebody who you think, oh, I know somebody who'll benefit from watching this. And in that way, you can help us grow. And that's a really good way to help your practice along as well. So just wanted to drop that in on you in case that's something that you might find useful. Take care of yourself again, and I'll see you soon. Bye.